Hello and welcome to Storytelling Live. Last week was crazy cool, huh? Yeah, crazy cool. It's a new expression, man. You know, you don't use that expression. Anyway, thanks for hopping on board. And two false stories about childhood recollection. The first story, of course, is completely fictional, and actually, I'll just give you a clue. Right from the get-go, we're not supposed to trust what the narrator is saying. It's on purpose, just because I like it as a creative device. You know. So it's basically a person recollecting their youth with an active imagination. Their time as a youth that they spent alone with an active imagination. It's basically it. It's a quick story. It's still amusing. It's amusing. The other one is I don't know, man. When I was young, they used to. That's the name of the first one. But when I was a boy, maybe I'm still a boy. I don't know. When I was a boy, they used to tell me that spicy food would put hair on my chest, and I used to think about that. Like, do I really want hair on my chest? I'm only 10. That would be weird. And so I don't know if you've ever heard that expression anywhere. Like, spicy food or that spice will put hair on your chest. I don't know where it started, but that's what I used to hear. So I wrote a story about that. And that's the story of furry animals. And of course, when the book came out for publishing, before it was being published, the editors warned me that it might get mixed up with the furries. But, I'm not talking about the furries, and, the title isn't the furries, so I think the furries understand, where they stand and where I stand. Not in front of any furries. But no, I'd totally wear a panda costume if I had one. But that's neither here nor there. The story of furry animals and how they came to be that way is basically father's shaggy dog tail to amuse his son for having transgressed across his plate at the diner by putting salsa on his potatoes, which I believe the father just wanted to eat for himself. It's like a big old plate of eggs and potatoes. And the kid wanted it all, of course, but he's not going to be able to eat it all. Dad knows, starts putting salsa, and gets stopped by the kid police. Hey, Dad, stop that. What are you doing? And he said, hey, man, it's good for you. I probably should have mentioned that in the story, but I didn't. I just wanted the fact that this dad came up with this amazing story to explain the salsa on the potatoes. And that's the second story of tonight. Lots of stuff, man. Lots of stuff going on in the world. Hopefully, it's my mother's birthday coming up this week, or it will have already happened, and by the time you see this, I will have had my first dose of vaccine, yes, I thought about it a lot. And we can talk about it privately, but YouTube might stop me if I say one thing or the other. And I'm not risking that. I'm not here to do anything but read funky stories and have a good time, man. That's all we're going to do tonight and forevermore, is have a good time together. But it makes me think about winding this down, and I'm thinking by maybe around May. Maybe that's it. I'm seeing a weird reflection on my ceiling, and I don't know what it's from. Oh, it's my water. I have water reflecting on the ceiling, and it's making the ceiling go. It's coming from this powerful little lamp here. Anyway, so I'm tripping out. Hope you guys are safe at home and safe outdoors or safe wherever you are. In front of this YouTube channel for the moment. And yes, I have a mustache hair that's like, because I went without wax tonight, and maybe you could tell it's the dry look. Maybe you can't tell. In any case, what else do we need to know for this story? I don't know. Yes. Here is the deal that I want to say is that in the early days, and it just mentions it very quickly, is the in the early days of tango, they it was a hot dance. It was very sexual, and it was also very violent, very quickly. So many writers have written about the violence of the tango scene in Argentina, and they carried straight knives, which is called a stiletto, and then facon is another kind of a beautiful little ornate knife that actually kind of went along with the early tango outfit. So they were knife fighters. And so I mentioned stilettos and facones after, but some people think stiletto heels, but it's not stiletto heels at all. The thing I wanted to say is that when I was young, this story is the very story where the expression fiercer monsters comes from. And both of these stories tonight are from fiercer monsters. And this one, when I was young, is where the editor found the expression they were looking for to title my book. Okay. When I was young. When I was young, steamships would clutter our front porch up to the doorstep, washed to the house like so much driftwood. The captains, dizzy as fallen leaves, would yell up to me in my bedroom asking for directions, my elbows draped over the windowsill horizon. Not all of them asked. Some found their own way. But the sea was far from where we lived. Our porch collected the daggers of prostitutes which had run off into the night witless of their owners, scampering down the gutter washing to our doorstep. Murder was a wildfire. The duels were performed with intimacy in sweaty alleys of stone pavers and wrought iron. Ladies or gentlemen, it did not matter. Their lives were expendable, but never their honor. Stilettos and facones, scissors and comb points. The weapons fled when they could out of disgust for their use. Blood lived in pools and never dried. In some places, the prostitutes kept company under a cone of oily streetlight, descending from a single lamp on the corner, quietly buzzing in the darkness, fixed to a leaning wooden pole, a pit stop at the edge of town, ready for orgasm or death, any kind of titillation. Every night, our streets rang with howling ghosts. Once a family had to leave their house because it became so infested they could no longer survive. It began with cups that wouldn't stay on the counter and cabinets spitting open. Then it grew to flooding bathrooms, wardrobes hurled to the bed, window panes shattering, and then ceaseless sobbing in the walls. The activity did not subside once the family left. The obnoxious spirits stayed on and had their way with the place. They tore bricks from the fireplace, planks from the floor, boards from the ceiling, and hurled them across the house. People would collect and watch from the street. That's how impressive it was. The ghosts pumped energy into the light bulbs, intermittently making the windows glow and the rooms swirl as debris flew, a cataclysm of breaking glass. Magistrates and pilots and constables swam to our porch, floating down the street only to get caught in our hedges and roll up the walkway. So much fallout, so many stories. No discussions, only shouts of statistics and systems for a society that was controlled by people and not words. By words alone, and not the people. The people versus the bombs, with policy, or without policy, with an iron fist, with a leather glove, with an open hand, with the children dead, with the children educated, hospitals for everyone, hospitals for no one, hospitals for some people, cities in the sky with the walls up, cities on the earth with the walls down. The flotsam was endless. Anything came to our front yard. My brain was a life raft. I barely clung to the side of an abysmal pool. For stability, I knit the hides of panthers together with jackals to make fiercer monsters. Lean, black, silent killers with long fangs and eyeballs that glowed red in the dark deep in the rose bush jungle vines. Nana, our neighbor across the street, would occasionally and maybe accidentally leave her dog poop in a paper bag on our porch. It arrived as anything else did in those days, as did Lala, her dog. She came scampering to the porch, tongue out, wanting to be pet, kicking past the eyeballs and knives and steamships innocently enough, for she had no idea where her poop might have ended up, or what kind of place it was, or how they got there. Nana's laugh sounded much like her dog's bark. And her dog barked often, and Nana loved to laugh. Sometimes Nana would see something funny on television and start laughing, which would make Lala a bit nervous. So she would bark, and when she barked, she would often make backward sneezes. She couldn't help it. Nana explained this to me one morning on the sidewalk. She told me it was the cutest thing. Nana thought her dog's sneezing was the funniest sound ever, so if Nana should start laughing for any reason and cause Lala to bark with Lala's strains of barking and backward sneezing, bringing on uncontrollable peals of laughter from a Nana who would snort to catch her breath, and it would in turn alarm the poor dog, and they would go on like that hour after hour until Nana was sore and there was a commercial on, and Lala would curl up on her pillow to sleep it off, and Nana would leave the couch to change her undies. I caught sight of her once on her way over with a paper bag in her hand. I went downstairs to tell Dad, "Pop, Nana's on her way with more poop." "No, she's not." He didn't even raise his head. He was sitting at the dining table in the late afternoon on a Saturday. He was peering deep into the wooden surface of the table through his glasses. They were thick and thumb-smudged with gold rims. "Come here, boy. You got a booger." That's just my nose." No, it's not. Come here, let me have a look at that." But Nana..." "Never mind her." He took me by the back of the head and pushed his finger into my nostril. I could feel the ridges of his skin. Dad's fingers smelled like garlic and soil. "I don't get it. What are you doing up in that room of yours, boy?" I didn't answer. He wasn't really asking. That's it. It's just a nutty little story. Some great images in it, though. It's fun. It's a good one. Pretty solid. The Story of Furry Animals. Now, we've already talked about the furries. and I don't need to belabor that. This is the story of a man and his young boy together at a diner. And Dad was eyeing those potatoes and just happened to put some hot sauce on that, preparing to eat them, right? Like any knowledgeable person would. Of course, the kid doesn't like it. Oh my God, Dad, stop it. You're ruining my eggs. That's too much. You poured salsa everywhere. Don't worry, little dude. Just mix it. You'll be fine. Besides, you know what they say, don't you? What? That dads should not mess with their plates of their children, especially when they are in that kid's favorite breakfast spot when he's finally staring down a plateful of huevos y papas cuando el papi es un loco en su cabeza? Calm down, man. No, that's not what they say. They say they're good salsa will put hair on your chest, man. Well, what if I don't want hair on my chest? Especially not from eating those huevos y papas. That would suck if when I got home after soccer and took a shower and saw hair sprouting out of my chest. You know I'd come looking for you, Poppy. Ah, silly boy, I understand. You have my permission to come looking for me. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you about was the story of furry animals and how they came to be that way. Oh, man. Is this another one of your shaggy dog tales? Well, this one literally is, but actually is not. What? Well, go ahead, but keep your hands off my plate. Well, long ago, before there were any humans, before they found fire or forged hammers or dreamt up castles or jails or war, animals walked the earth in exquisite comfort, each suited to their particular environment by means of their body shape and size. And this system worked fine for millions of years. They needed no fur. During the day, they would do their creaturely activities and then stretch out in the sun to warm themselves and relax. At night, they would come down from the trees and come in from the field to hang out with one another, every sort of animal, to share stories, to share the finer points of their day, and to fend off the chill of the night. The animal's skin. Together, it was marvelous to behold. Some were bright pink, some had black and white splotches, and some were translucent, and their red and blue veins showed through their skin very easily. The pile of animals in all their hues and their comfortable rumbling chatter was a beautiful sight. And one day, the weather changed. They found it uncomfortable to make their creaturely rounds during the day, but still found warmth together every evening. And then it got colder. And it stayed cold. The animals found it unbearable to make their rounds. They took to grouping all day on the forest floor, huddled against their favorite rock. They told stories of when it was warmer, what the bees were doing, what color the flowers were. Some went hungry because they refused to leave the others to go foraging. A few died. And this made the pile of animals colder. It was a sad time. They said goodbye to their friends and pushed them far away from the heap. That night, they noticed two round red eyes glaring at them from the perimeter of the woods. "Who are you?" they yelled, but there was no answer. The eyes walked in a circle, in the dark, around the poor chilly animals huddled on the forest floor. Their good days were gone. Their friends were dying. And a stranger was leering at them. Allow me to introduce myself. It was a tall, noble, muscular, shaggy Chihuahua dog who came peeking through the trees. "I come from a land very far south where it is still warm, but it is a mountainous country, so we need this stuff all over our skin to protect us from when we forage our magical diet high in the mountains, and we call it fur." The animals in a pile did not move from where they were, but they did say, "Ooh," And as they marveled at the dog's commanding stature and thick rolls of fur. What we do is mix up a magical batch of salsa. Salsa just means sauce. You see, we make the sauce in several ways. We eat it on our food, or we eat it by itself when we want the pure power. Salsa is an amazing and flavorful combination of vegetables, and once you try it, you will find it is muy picante, or very hot. It has an internal heat that will give you warmth throughout the cold days. There is a field not far from here where the ingredients grow together naturally. I will take you there in the morning. The Chihuahua dog was obviously a shaman. The cold and starving creatures had been all over the area, but never saw any magical plants growing in the field. But they didn't know what one would look like unless they were shown. So truly this was a powerful visitor. His sauce must be the reason for his strength and vigor. They were curious. Tomorrow would surely be an amazing day. But who would go with him? Nobody wanted to go. So the Chihuahua went out early the next morning. He had little need for sleep. He had helped other animals on his pilgrimage north from home. The premise for his pilgrimage was simple. He would walk until he found suffering. In these days it was not difficult. He would walk for 5 months and back again, helping whomever he could along the way. Today, he would check the field for his new friends. He had seen some of the good plants growing in a patch of sun. He had a good feeling about this. He looked for hours. Then he checked some familiar-looking places. He did not see the spot he noticed the day before. He would look elsewhere. Nothing. He found other plants and food for the others. He brought back what he could. They eagerly lapped up what he had brought them. "Is this salsa?" "No, it is not. I will try again tomorrow." The animals looked at each other and doubted his power. They murmured quietly together in their calico pile of skin tones, blue and brown and pink and translucent, with all the blood veins exposed. Doubt came quick to them. They had been in steady decline for some time. They watched him curl up and fall asleep on his own, a few yards away. "We should kill him, cut that fur off, and make ourselves some coats." "Dad, really? They said that?" "Shh, hang on. Do you want to hear this or not?" "Geez." "No way. There are too many of us, or not enough of him," one of the others said. "We need that salsa. We need to learn how to make ourselves strong." A third animal said, "If he's a shaman, a true shaman, then he is the sauce, and we need the sauce." The pile of animals grumbled back and forth until they fell asleep. And when they awoke during the night, they would look across at the giant dog sleeping not far from them. They would close their eyes and dream of fur. They could run where they want, climb what they want. They might go really high in the mountains and just live there and look across the valleys and yell to their neighbors on the opposite mountain, yes, with fur. They could fill the sky with their song. The cottony clouds, the chocolatey dirt, the fluffy trees, the sweet, dewy grass, it would all chime in. Life would be a lot better with fur. The Chihuahua shaman headed out early the next morning. The pile of animals pretended not to notice. They dozed heavy and dreamt of eating clean foods that gave them strong muscles and solid bones. They chewed as they dreamt. They salivated on one another. "Gross, Dad. Then what happened?" Well, the Chihuahua shaman came back empty-handed. He did make them a good little mixture of cilantro and onions, but they didn't go for it. They wanted more nuts and berries. They had their own things they like to eat, you know? "I know. Animals don't eat salsa. They eat, like you said, nuts and berries and leaves and little insects." "Very true. Yes, I'm glad you said that. Now, think about it for a second. If you went into the forest and dropped some salsa, no. Or a burrito, no. Or Just think of a French fry. If you were an animal, you were going around looking for nuts and berries, but you come across the single French fry, do you think you would pass that up? You would think that thing dropped from heaven. Heaven, am I right? Heh, I guess, but it's not good for them. Correct. However, this Chihuahua was a shaman, a very wise animal who was very powerful, and if he told you his tribe knew how to make a secret food that gave strength and fur, then you would believe him, and that's what they did because he had the power. Because he had the power to make something they could never make on their own. Damn straight they want that. They would eat it, I'm sure. Are you going to let me tell you the story or not? I have to take you to practice right now, so fine. I'll tell you the rest this evening at home after your shower, after you shave your chest down. So then what happened, Poppy? This is after. It's not written in the story, but there's a little pause in the story. This is later that night. So then what happened, Poppy? Oh yeah, where was I? Wait a minute! A Chihuahua dog is tiny. You're lying to me. No. I have not been lying to you. This is a story. Because it is a story and not the news. Not history. Not true or false. It's a story. Now, you got to sit back and listen because it's going to knock your socks off. My socks are off. Because you will learn something. I learn things every day. This is my one day to not learn. Listen, niño, you will like it. Okay. The animals woke up in early afternoon. They wiped their eyes. The Chihuahua was nowhere to be found. They figured he was still out. The wind picked up. There would be a storm upon them soon, and gauging from the smell in the wind, it would carry rain. And it might even carry snow. The animals did not budge from their pile. They spoke of the things they knew. They told some of the old jokes. Day turned to night, and as the sun set, dreary winds arrived, and the trees shrugged and leaned in strange manners. A crew of tall, brooding clouds cruised low over the forest and pressed the sky down further. Rain, at least, was certain. They thought about how warm salsa might be. It probably burns your throat, someone said. I get indigestion early. I hope it doesn't burn my stomach. Does it really burn? Said another, and no one knew. They thought it might taste like the bark of a certain tree. They tried to imagine the taste as the first light drops of rain fell. And the Chihuahua shaman, he came back well after dark, well after the forest was dotted with shallow ponds, well after the starving creatures cowered at several volleys of thunder. They were frozen in place. He brought them food. They ate what they could and climbed back on top of each other. The Chihuahua looked tired. He walked over to his spot, curled up, and without saying a word, he laid his body down. It looked gaunt and shadowy in the lightning. Lightning struck a tree near the Chihuahua, and the animals watched a glowing electrical blast spread across a puddle and blow up the ground beneath him. And for a second, he was engulfed in bright light. His body leapt up into the air and fell down lifeless. Was he lifeless? If he wasn't, how would they get the salsa? Lightning, the lightning storm, smashed overhead. Layers of sheets of water and giant pelts and giant drops pelted the animals, and they shivered together. We don't need him to make the magical sauce. The magical sauce is inside him. It is him. This Chihuahua is our sauce. Let's steal its magic. Their ears rang from thunder. "Come on! We've got to make it to him! It's now or never!" "Is it safe?" "No, it's definitely not safe. But if we're gonna survive this night, we must steal his magic. It's the only way." "Oh, I don't know." And they each positioned themselves over the Chihuahua. And he kicked and groaned, but they held him down. Then each little animal stuck a nail into his skin, and they laid all over his body, nursing on his blood. They suddenly fell into a deep sleep, and the creatures had variations of the same dream. They dreamed that the sky grew heavy and pressed down upon them. Their bones ached in their sleep. They all saw a lightning bolt. They all saw a lake of pure water, and they all saw the magical plant that grew the fruit that the Chihuahua had been talking about. And the animals were not so fortunate. A bolt of lightning hit them, and they scattered everywhere, in mid-flight and as they landed, and after they landed, they kept dreaming. The animals that had huddled in a pile now had separate dreams. Some felt their limbs lengthen. Others felt like their ears grew long and flopped by the sides of their head. There were some animals that felt their stomachs bulge and antlers sprout from their skull. The antlers were long and branchy and itchy with felt, and they rolled in their sleep to get rid of the feeling. Yet others felt longer and more muscular. They dreamt of blood flowing in soft animal meat in their teeth. Certain animals dreamt of rocky hills mounting violently upward to the sky beneath the flashing storm, and they grew lots of fur. Yes, they grew the fur and hooves and horns and ears and fangs, and some had a smooth coat of fur, and others had long, shaggy coats of fur, but they knew not, for they slept and slept as the storm raged overhead, but not the Chihuahua. He dreamt he had fallen down a deep well that was becoming smaller at the end. But his speed of falling increased as he fell, and the walls closed in tighter and tighter around him, but they never touched him. And he shut his eyes tight, and he opened them. He somehow knew that he needed to get to the bottom of the well. It would be warmer there. He felt the heat radiating up. The well turned 90 degrees and became a tunnel, and his falling turned into accelerated running. He ran faster and faster and kept looking for the lake of magic salsa. He could smell it somewhere out there. He could feel it. He ran faster to return to the salsa, to his family, his friends. He thought of his loved ones as salsa. The salsa was him, was inside him, was in them. He needed to return. Eventually, the storm tired and left to wreak unruly damage somewhere else. The trees dripped. The puddles shimmered in the late morning light. The hills stood clean and proud. The Chihuahua opened his eyes and couldn't believe how close the ground was. He tried to stand up, but looked down and realized he was already standing as tall as he could. The dream was somehow real. He had fallen through a tunnel and shrunk. He was excited and nervous. He looked at himself in a small pool of water. He was short. He was with white hairs around his snout. His eyes bugged out, and he felt a little uneasy about everything. He felt strange about staying there to help the animals. He felt weird about leaving the shelter of the trees. He was uneasy with the idea of heading home alone. All his mastery of demeanor had somehow fled with the dream. He knew he needed to be home among his group. He headed back. The journey would take him a full year instead of 5 months. Back under the sheltered canopy of trees, one animal looked at herself in a puddle and discovered she was a wolf. At first she thought she saw the chihuahua, but no, the image licked her nose at the same time she did. It moved its head from side to side when she did. Its paw met hers when she stepped into the puddle. Yes, she was a wolf. She ran back to the old place, the rock, and she discovered it was now a burnt pit with stones flung about every which way. She looked for the others but did not find them. She ran off in search of food. Another animal awoke to discover that he was the deer with the very itchy antlers. He rubbed them on the tree trunks and bellowed into the air, and his voice was still squeaky, much as it had always been. The grass in a clearing glowed with insistence and beckoned him out to it. He hopped and galloped and kicked his way there with his new long legs, and he waved his antlers around like a fussy youth. And that grass was so tender to nibble. But he considered a new thought. Maybe he should be careful in this clearing. And then he heard a wolf howl echo through the air. He knew he needed to stay low. This sounded like danger. Another animal awoke to find she was a rabbit. A few of them did. They hopped out to the clearing to munch on the sparkling grass. They played in the sun. They recognized the deer from before. "Hey, how'd you get so big? Isn't it great to have fur? This is the best," they asked, and they all trotted over. The deer, on seeing the grass, moved toward him in a solid shooting wave, somehow driven by an invisible force, fled the scene at full tilt. The she-wolf snapped up a rabbit and tore into it. "Hey!" they all yelled. The rabbit screamed and ran. The wolf gave chase. The animals could no longer understand one another. They would never again share the same old jokes. They would never enjoy sleeping in a pile or even dread sleeping in a pile. The mountain rams ran up the hills and shouted to their neighbors across the valley. They jumped off the rocks and outran the wolves. No one was speaking like they used to. The times had changed. A long winter settled in, but now the animals were ready. They knew what to do. "Hey, Sonny, you like that?" "Okay. Good night, mijito. Mi querido. I love you." And that ends that little story. And that ends a very... Oh my god, the video has been crap tonight. Hello. Oh. Sorry for the video. Hope the sound's okay. I'll listen back to it. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's not good. We'll find out. Anyway. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait for next week. We might get back into... well, I don't know what we're going to get into. So... it's going to be cool. Whatever it is. All right. Good night. Thank you. Good night.